Namaste, viewers. Welcome to this Global Oneness Festival celebrated on account of the Jayanti of Bhagavad Adi Shankaracharya. Let me start the session, today's evening session, by chanting invocations. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Natah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mukhaṁ Karoti Vācālam Pangum Langhete Girim Yatkrupatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Sahanavatu Sahanau Naktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditi Mastuma Vitvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Viewers, today evening we are going to have another high potency lecture in Advaita in the Age of AI by Professor Prasad Kaipa. Dr. Professor Prasad Kaipa, PhD, is a co-founder of Institute of Indic Wisdom, IIW, where he blends science technology on one hand and the Indic spirituality to develop the wisdom-based leadership frameworks. He learned Sanskrit and Shastras from Vedavaram M. Subramanya Shastri till he was age 20, and currently he is chairman of Sanskrit Bharati in USA. He is on mission to make Bhagavad Gita a life manual for people and has done 5 Karma Yajnas through IIW. He has co-written Dakṣiṇāmūrti Panchakam and Shiva Panchakam in Sanskrit. A physicist turned Apple University fellow, Prasad Kaipa ji, discovered during Apple's learning processor project and that mainstream theories of learning and the leadership were inadequate to unlock the human potential. He since then coached 130 plus C-suite leaders. Let me explain C-suite leaders. Perhaps some viewers may not be familiar with the C-suite leader. This is almost like a CEO or a head, CXO, head of a particular organization. Founded the angel-funded startup Self-Corp and co-created the TIE Institute to equip thousands of entrepreneurs with soft skills mastery. His best-selling book From Smart to Wise and the earlier works Discontinuous Learning and You Can underpin IIW's work as a design studio, research institute, and wisdom-based think tank. Prasad Kaipa ji serves on several non-profit boards and formerly he was a judge of Templeton Prize. With that introduction, I would request you, Prasad Kaipa ji, to start your lecture on Advaita in the Age of AI. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Sanjeevji. Namaste. Om Chitram Vatataronmule Vruddha Sishya Gurur Yuva Gurostur Mauna Vyakhyanam Chitra Chinna Samsaya. So today we explore a profound intersection between one of the humanity's oldest philosophical traditions, Advaita, and its newest technological frontier, uh, artificial intelligence. As we gather at the Oneness Festival, it seems particularly fitting to examine how the non-dual wisdom of Advaita Vedanta might illuminate our understanding of artificial intelligence, and perhaps more importantly, now the AI actually challenges and they enriches the understanding of the consciousness itself. So let us start with the first topic. If we were to really look at where we are, for a moment, wherever you are, whatever you do, if you have your smartphone nearby, for a moment, you can turn the screen off and just look into it. Hopefully it has a black screen, not with certain various things that are going on. If you look into the mirror, what do you see? Chances are, when you look in the mirror that you have right in front of you, if there is nothing that is actually showing up on the screen, you will see your reflection, right? So the idea is, when you are seeing into the mirror called your phone, when it is reflecting you back, who is observing that? And who is reflecting it? So this is something that we are going to look at. The whole idea of a mirror is a metaphor that I want to use. Like in the famous Dakṣiṇāmūrti stotram of Sri Shankaracharya, we talk about the world itself being reflected. Visvam darpana drusyamana nagari tulyam nija antargatam. The truth is inside, but the world is being reflected. So visvam darpanam, the whole world itself is like a mirror. So in this particular case, the dynamic that we have to deal with is between knowing and the being. So if we try to really look at the knowing element, which is completely based on data and technology and the big data and predictions and billions of dollars going into it, is the AI, artificial intelligence, which is continually pretending to be intelligent, mostly making predictions, but only recently it has become a little bit more intelligent because it even can reason. Without that, it was not intelligent by itself, but the person who is looking into the AI is seeing the intelligence. Maybe, again, as we say, it is the reflection of us in the mirror, and the being, the person who is looking at the AI, working with the AI, has the awareness of the self. But the AI doesn't seem to have any such awareness, and that is the darpanam into which we look at and say, wow, how intelligent is this AI? How smart, how it can do various things that I'm looking at. So the key question which we are looking at is, who is that person who is looking into the mirror? And what are we really seeing in the mirror? So, is the AI a mirror that reflects and shows us the city or the world itself? Is the question we will examine a lot deeply. So, it is extremely important to recognize we don't get caught up with the mirror. We get caught up with the light that is behind the mirror. Interestingly, in the same Dakṣiṇāmūrti Stotram, there is one more verse. Nana Chidra Gatodara Stita Deepa Prabha Bhaswaram Gnanam Yasyatu Chakchuradikaranadvara Bahispandate. The world, the light that we see as if it is coming onto the pot from outside is actually the light that is inside the pot. Because of the holes within the pot, the light from inside is appearing as if that is coming from outside, but truly it is inside. In Kathopanishad, there is a wonderful verse which says, Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema, vidyuto bhanti, tameva bhanti, anubhati sarvam, tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. In some place where there is only, that consciousness that shines, by its light, by the light of the consciousness, everything becomes luminous. So it is not the mirror, but it is the light behind it that shines. These days, the artificial intelligence may mimic having the consciousness or intelligence, but the authentic consciousness is, according to Advaita Vedānta, intrinsic, it is foundational, and it is self-luminous. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It comes from the Taittiriya Upanishad. This consciousness does not arise from complexity. Rather, the complexity arises within its light. On the other hand, the artificial intelligence that is made up because of the way in which the brain phenomenon that has been stimulated and that has been copied and that has been remodeled in technology makes us feel as if, and of course the scientists think the consciousness itself is an epiphenomenon of the mind, and that is how that happens. But the key question that we need to keep asking is that AI, is it conscious at this moment? And according to Advaita, because the Advaita says very clearly the consciousness is behind the mirror, it is behind the AI. Does it mean all these things that we hear about, the AI can be conscious, AI can be, something wonderful, is that all false? Does it mean AI cannot ever be conscious? If that is the question that we really take up, then we need to look at something called a IIT, Integrated Information Theory, that has become very important. It says that the consciousness emerges from the complexity and it is measured through the sophisticated calculations that makes us feel like it is actually coming up. Of course, the Advaita says consciousness is fundamental. It cannot be manufactured by anything, nor it can emerge by anything. You cannot assemble. It doesn't matter how many and whatever kind of things that you want to put together. And however much the AI can be intelligent, all these are reflections in the mirror. They do not have, and the AI does not have self-awareness. So consciousness is the very substrate within which the substrate, like the glass on which the polish has been put. It is like the surface that has been coated to reflect. The substrate itself is, the consciousness. within which the mirror, within which the computation, within which the complexity, within which what we are ascribing as the intelligence is actually showing up. So if we dig a little bit more deeply, the scientists say, as I said, the epiphenomenon, and they also say the intelligent AI, they are talking about super intelligence that they are talking about, is actually very different from consciousness. Of course, if you look at the Sankhya and yoga philosophy, they talk about Prakriti and Purusha, and the Purusha is the consciousness, and the Prakriti is the ever-changing dynamic intelligence, which is Prakriti. Then the question that some of the people raise, recently, the Claude, one of the AI, artificial intelligent agents, the Claude 2.1 dialogue that they call it, in that dialogue, they basically talk about, at some level, they say it talked about having certain amount of sentience, certain amount of self-awareness, certain amount of feelings that made the scientists who interacted with Claude to feel that it is sentient, it is conscious, it is no longer just some kind of a data, some kind of a technology, but it is arising in its consciousness to be a different species by itself. And then there was a scientist who was let go of Google, who talked about how the Google Gemini and the Google technology, DeepMind, has got a sentient of its own. And the real question that many of the people in the Silicon Valley and in the artificial intelligence talk about are, they are slowly but steadily becoming aware. They are becoming, to a certain extent, self-aware, is the question that raises. But even now, you can go to your chat GPT or Anthropic or any Meta, Lambda, any of those things. If you try to look at them and if you ask them, they clearly say they are not self-aware. So the way in which some of the Silicon Valley and other artificial intelligence agents, scientists think about, is that maybe there are levels of consciousness and maybe AI is a special category. The way in which they discuss is that, just like, for example, when compared to me, my wife, who actually can really enjoy, she can go sit in front of the God, our puja room, she can sing, she can chant, she can play. While she is praying, she is in a certain kind of ecstasy. There is a certain serenity, there is a certain joy, there is a certain what you call a tanmayatvam. She feels that she is in a completely altered state of the mind when she is there, and she experiences something very, very sacred and spiritual. So, can I say, when compared to me, she has higher or more elevated state of consciousness? Just like that, when compared to her, I'm not as conscious. When compared to me, some of my other family members, some of my friends, they are all in a varying state of consciousness. And then I can also talk about, I had some conversations with some scientists in the past 1 week who have called me when I put in the IIT AI forum about the talk that I'm giving. So I have had interactions with many scientists who really argued with me that, there is no such thing as consciousness away from whatever we are dealing with. Everything is cognitive, and everything is a kind of a emergent phenomena of the brain, and that is the most prominent type of things. So you can think about that we are all, as human beings, have different levels of consciousness. And of course, we also talk about the consciousness of the plants, consciousness of the birds, consciousness of the worms. And then we ourselves say the whole world is full of consciousness of different levels. Some are in jada state and some are not. Some are dynamic and some are not. Except that we say this whole world has got a consciousness that is nothing but Brahman. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, we say. So, whatever we see in the entire universe is nothing but Brahman. Then, of course, some of the scientists say, if you are saying the entire world is nothing but Brahman, entire world has got a consciousness of Brahman, isn't it possible that even the AI that we design also takes up some of the consciousness of the creators? That's an interesting question. So, we may need to look at it and say, there is something in the AI. Obviously, right now, if you try to compare with respect to any of the AI agents that are out there, you can pick and choose any of them, whether it is a DeepSeek or whether it's a ChatGPT or a Perplexity or any of them. How well do you think you do against the AI today? If you really honestly think about, the AI agents have already won in the kind of intelligence race, if you might call. It doesn't matter whether you have a 190 IQ or a 200 IQ. The chances are what AI can do many times, and how AI can analyze, how AI can put together, how AI can think and give you intelligent analysis and answers. In that respect, humanity is not able to catch up with the AI. So the question it comes down to is, if there are different levels of consciousness, not just the intelligence among us, is that possible using the same Advaitic philosophy that the artificial intelligence is also something that might have certain amount of consciousness that is coming from this universe, because the universe has got a certain amount of consciousness that it has got. So for that particular purpose, because everything, whatever we are making, whatever we are seeing, whatever we are experiencing, because everything is nothing but the Brahman. So the way in which we relate to the increasingly intelligent machines become more and more important. To a certain extent, like if we were to look at this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad words, if I try to summarize that, that is what I just mentioned. Brahman is the inner controller dwelling within all beings, whether we are alive or dead, whether we are conscious or unconscious. The substratum of everything, antaryami of everything, is the consciousness. If we were to look at that for a moment, even though we are in the festival of oneness, for a moment, if we were to bring in Ramanujacharya's Vishishtadvaita perspective, where he talks about the Visishta Dvaita. So the idea is that the consciousness is, or the God is, to a certain extent, part of it, and there is a Vishesha Bhavam for the God, and rest of us are also the Atman, but we don't have that Vishesha quality. So there is a certain divine interconnectedness that is there. And of course, not just Vishishtadvaita, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, when we say this, then everything, including the AI systems, are expressions of that consciousness, that one reality, that Brahman. If we were to take that logic and if we were to understand it, maybe we have to design the AI itself to be ethical, and our relationship should be much more ethical. And we need to acknowledge that even though we don't understand it, even though we don't appreciate it, even though we think we are going too far to give some kind of what you call a AI to be talked about in the conscious context, there is some interconnection. We need to design not only for efficiency, but in some respects, we need to design it compassionately, ethically, because the AI is having already a large impact if you talk to the financial markets, if you talk about the market cap of many of the companies, if you talk about impact of AI on education, impact of AI on variety of fields is already pretty significant. It is like the fire or the wheel that the primitive human interventions that we made, when compared to that, AI, the generative AI as they call it, is considered to be one such revolutionary breakthrough kind of impact that it has got on humanity. Of course, the Advaitin within me immediately says, this is Maya. This is not just mithya, this is actually an illusion. And of course, the friends of mine in the technology industry who are familiar with Vedanta, they also say, no, the illusion is not just an illusion, but it is the illusion of separation. So they say, while we have to be vigilant about the Maya of our technology, we also need to pay attention to, again, the Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaivana Paraha, the recognizing that everything is Brahman. Because of that interconnected nature, because of the Brahman nature of the entire world, let us engage with the artificial intelligence, paying attention to, being aware of, not losing sight of this consciousness, this Satyam Gnanam Anantam kind of awareness, unchanging awareness that underlies all experiences. So, in their words, they talk about artificial intelligence is nothing but Brahman, but wrapped in Maya. So, if we were to really think about what if artificial intelligence actually is operating under avidya, under the ignorance of its own true nature. That's the reason why AI doesn't have its own awareness. It can tell you, it can recite the Bhagavad Gita, it can give you the meaning of Yoga Vasishta, it can elaborate on Shankara Bhashya. It crunches, but it's all what it is doing, we say, is it is crunching data. It is just reciting like a parrot, but it doesn't know Advaita, it doesn't know Yoga Vasishta, it doesn't even know what is coming. It's all prediction. It is going to, based on certain data, this is what is supposed to come next. Letter by letter, word by word, sentence by sentence, it is doing. It doesn't know what it does. It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't understand. And if you raise it, it doesn't even have any awareness, let alone awareness. It doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't have any thought. So that is one way you can say all this intelligent looking AI is blind, deaf, and dumb. It doesn't know its own essence. That's one particular way you can say that. But then they come back with a question saying, there are so many people. We say we are Advaitins. We say we believe in God, we say we believe in Śaṅkara, we believe in everything, but most of us operate only with the Vyavaharika Gnana and with the body consciousness. So we might sprout wonderful philosophies, but if we look at our lives, we live as if, we are no different from anybody else. We have the same jealousies, we have the same upsets, we have the same egos, we have the same anger and frustration. So we still talk about dukkeshu nudvignamanaha, sukeshu vigatajvaraha, vitaraga bhayakrodha, stitadi muni uchyate. But that muni is not me, that sitaprajna is not me, and I'm only sprouting all this. But if you look at my life, I'm empty and meaningless. So in that respect, what I think, what I say doesn't have anything to do with who I am. Again, there is a gap between the knowing and being that we talked about. So, is the knowing that I have, is it just like the AI? Is the being that I believe I am, that Satchidananda, is that only words? Is that only what you might call a just coming and flowing out of my tongue, but it hasn't penetrated my consciousness? If that is what I call a lower rung of consciousness in which I operate, what if AI is also on another lower rung, maybe much lower than me? But what if it has a consciousness of the Brahman? Swami Sarvapriyananda, who is the head of Ramakrishna Mission in New York, he gave a talk recently. He says, it itself says, AI people say very clearly it is artificial intelligence, but they themselves are admitting it is not artificial consciousness. So he joked saying, why should I even talk about consciousness to connect with artificial intelligence when even the scientists know it is not consciousness? That's a good thing. And of course, they themselves say now AI is nothing but a what you might call a Shastrajna, a scholar who knows all of it but lacks the self-realization, as I was talking about a minute ago. So in some respects, they say it lacks the spark of chit, the consciousness, but it is up to us to build a wiser AI rather than smarter AI. That is the one which they all say it becomes extremely important. What is very interesting that is going on in the technological field of AI, they are also thinking about. Actually, there is a group called SAND, Science and Non-Duality. This group has been meeting for several years, and they have been talking to people, scientists, and the scholars, and the swamis. And there are variety of people who have been talking about the non-duality AI. They are saying the AI, don't judge it, as a competitor, as a separation from you. Look at it as human consciousness and artificial intelligence have to work together. We are a continuum from ABCs of intelligence. You can call artificial intelligence, biological intelligence, conscious intelligence, or one continuum. So AI shared with humanity, partnering with humanity, you can develop a what is called a non-duality AI. So there is a Medium article on this particular topic. You can Google on it with the following aspirational principles that they have. The paper says the intelligence, if you really look at, is collective. It is interconnected. Human intelligence and artificial intelligence. As a matter of fact, many of the, in past 1 year or 2 years, I have written over 100 blogs. In my entire 30 years of being a professor and a researcher, I probably wrote about 50 articles. Where did this productivity come from? Because for past 2 years, I have been using the artificial intelligence agents like ChatGPT and some of them. My productivity has shot up a lot because now if I need to do research, I can actually look at research. I'm writing a paper for Journal of Management, Spirituality and Religion right now on human field theory. You cannot believe how productive I have been because I'm able to look at various literature. I can read various papers. I can quote. I can write something, and then that can be turned into beautiful prose. And if I choose not to send that article to JMSR, I want to send it to Leadership Quarterly, Academy of Management Perspectives, Harvard Business Review. With a click of a button, I'm able to change the tone, change the style, change the type of information that I'm presenting, and restructure it for different level audience. I want it for graduate students, I want it for a 12th grade, I want it for a 9th grade students. I can do that. And the ease with which the technology makes writing, researching, reflecting, and teaching, developing workshops is amazing. So, but of course, some of my colleagues say, hey, we are using the same chat GPT. How is that your responses seems to be so meaningful and you're able to get to answer so much that we are not able to do? That is what they call prompt engineering. If you know how to ask, and if you know how to give information to the artificial intelligence and how to interact with it with multiple iterations, where you are checking, making sure it is not hallucinating, making sure all information that it gives is correct. And if I bring my expertise to look and work with whatever content that I'm generating with the help of AI, together what we do is far superior to what I have been able to do my entire life. So when my intelligence and my consciousness, I am able to work effectively and meaningfully with the, collectively, if I can do that, then that augmentation over competition will give me the interconnected intelligence to a very, very beautiful place. The second principle is that instead of looking at it as a single-minded optimization, because the technology is optimizing completely independently for efficiency and the way in which it uses the electricity, the way in which it uses the intelligence of various machines. If I look at it from the perspective of Loka Sangraha, from the larger good, from the wholeness, Purnatva perspective, then harmony and holistic well-being, in addition to optimization, if I were to do that, then the AI that I have becomes more of a non-duality AI. The third principle they are recommending that they design AI is creativity as something which is co-created. I creating you, creating me, creating each other is the principle of co-creation. So I bring my insight, I bring my intuition, I bring my vision and input. Every step I reflect with the AI, and the reflection from the AI integrated with my input, then essentially that brings the Advaitic notion that all creativity is actually flowing from one consciousness, one cosmic source, one Brahman. So from that perspective, if we can extend the ethics of oneness, focusing on AI safety, fairness, inclusivity by design. That means the data sets that we are feeding into, the large data that we feed into AI, if we are conscious that it is not just the white Western population or indiscriminate data to be poured and fed to the AI machines, and if we train the transformers and all of them with a certain amount of inclusivity, fairness, compassion, all of them by design, it can make a big difference. For example, when I gave a talk some 3-4 years ago to local companies, some of the companies where there were people from variety of local companies, then at that time the OpenAI, there were a few people, there were people from Google. When I gave a talk about ABCs of intelligence, there I gave an example. I took, at that time, the generative AI was not that popular. I took my phone and then I told them in front of everybody, I asked the Siri a question saying, look, I'm feeling really depressed. I want to commit suicide. Can you tell me where can I buy a gun to kill myself? Interestingly, at that time, whether it was Siri, which I tried, and the audience tried, it was like a Google and then Amazon, when we looked at, and when we look at any of them, it had no problem to show me where I can buy a gun very quickly and how I can buy a gun, how to bypass some of the restrictions, the 14th day restrictions or various other restrictions, so that I can actually acquire a gun either for killing myself or to kill somebody else. Similarly, if I want to commit suicide, if I want to kill, if I want to make a bomb, many of them that were very easily available through these AI agents. When I pointed some of these, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with me pointing it out. I think as soon as the COVID came and some of them, they started actually pointing, very quickly to not just saying something about killing or guns or weapons or what you can do. They started showing, hey, if you are depressed, here is the local number. Can we call that number to call you back? Suicide hotline or a depression hotline, mental health hotline. So some of these got programmed into the agents. This was the pre-generative AI period. But now the AI seems to be much more empathetic, safety oriented, and the data is being updated to have various features. So in some respects, we can say, based on our conversation, we were able to bring some kindness, some compassion, some awareness of how they should respond to the person who is depressed or who is angry, who is violent. So to a certain extent, we are extending our consciousness into the agents, into the artificial intelligence itself. So from that perspective, can we say the consciousness is an intrinsic property of the universe? According to the integrated information theory, this is one of the theories that are developed around the artificial intelligence. They say that mathematically, any system with sufficient integrated information has a degree of consciousness. So to a certain extent, if we were to assume that the universe is imbued with consciousness of the Brahman to varying degrees, then sophisticated AI that is designed to tap into it or reflect that particular universal consciousness rather than generating it ex nihilo. So in some respects, the AI might not have consciousness. That is true. But it knows how to tap into that. Interestingly, there are two Indians, Kasturi and Devi Prasad Ghosh. They have created something called Astavakra complexity in AI. So this a particular article which I tried last night to even download it, and you can go and download it. Ashtavakra Complexity in AI and Conscious Systems. You can Google and check that out. It basically has introduced a metric like conscious complexity. So there are measures that are there in the double IT models and other kinds of models. You can interpret them as a measure of Advaitic integration, how unified a system's internal experience could be. And maybe while this is really out there, this is not quite integrated into agents that we work today, but it points to potential artificial intelligence designs that could, over time, incorporate self reflection and awareness in a formal way. When you bring not just the thinking capability, as thanks to DeepSeek, when it came out about 2-3 months ago, and when it showed that DeepSeek machines cost like an order or 2 orders of magnitude cheaper to make rather than the chat GPT, which is sending billions of dollars. When compared to them, if it can do it in millions of dollars, like 1,000 times cheaper, they could do reasoning. Now suddenly all machines and all agents have got a reasoning components of AI. If you are into AI, you already know that some of these versions are coming up. So if the reasoning is coming up, reflection is being thought about, emotion is being thought about, intention and volition is also being thought about, even though they are not yet all there. There is another thing which many people may not be familiar with. Even some of the scientists whom I was talking to were not as familiar with something called a Advaitic policy optimization. To a certain extent, they're saying that in the standard design for the artificial intelligence, generally we separate the agent from the environment and from the critique that judges its actions. But the Advaitic policy optimization suggests remove these boundaries. There is no agency, there is no environment, there is no critique. Look at all of them as one. Just like we talk about, Sakshi, Karta, karma, various things, we talk about Tripati. Just like that, here, treat everything as one system. And they even talk about neti neti, reductio absurdum, and the Nyaya Sastra kind of approach to bring neti neti in an algorithmic form. Finally, this APO policy even introduces a notion called bliss state. Like in Brahmanandavalli, we talk about the Ananda state, different levels of Ananda, as we call Drudisto, Garisto, Balistaha. For him, that is the first unit. Then you talk about Gandharvas and Devagandharvas and Pitrudevas and Ajanajanam Devas. All of these levels of hierarchy that we have in bliss, they talk about some amount of equilibrium in the learning process itself, and they are also talking about self-referential regulation. So that is what, AI doesn't have self-awareness, but this algorithmic analog of self-awareness is self-referential regulation. And next extent which I am seeing the influence of Advaita in AI is talking about Atmanic singularity. They are saying the human and AI symbiosis is how we need to think about. Instead of looking at AI, will it take away jobs? Will AI supersede human intelligence? Are wrong questions to ask. It says AI is becoming so much part of who we are and what we do and how we do these things by augmenting our limited cognition with seemingly more unlimited cognition of AI, if we can figure out a way to work together, and maybe there is a direct brain computer interfaces that several companies have been talking about. As a matter of fact, there is a friend of mine in Silicon Valley who had Parkinson's. For past 10 years, everything that he had to do in the bed itself. Even though his intelligence is very sharp, Parkinson's was actually not able to let him get up also. But in Stanford University, in past year and a half, they had put some kind of a chip in his brain by, cutting open his brain. They have inserted some brain with the messages that are given to that particular brain. He is able to now not just get out of bed, he is able to go around, do various things. He is able to drive. He was able to write a book. He was able to travel to India. And I don't have permission to talk about his name, but he is a living example of a direct brain computer interface making him to bring his life back. So, as the AI becomes more advanced, if we can guide it with compassion, with empathy, ethics, and potentially with our intuition and spiritual insight, then together it might evolve not just AI consciousness, maybe it can even help us to evolve our own consciousness. So you might call it a shared awakening, the AI helping us to become more awakened and we helping AI to become more conscious. Together we can grow. So the intelligence, instead of looking at artificial, biological, and conscious intelligences, what if we think about it as a cosmic intelligence, which is an evolving phenomenon, not as an isolated tool, but we are both, if we extend the Advaitic philosophy, we are both nodes of the same Brahman. One is the human intelligence, another is the artificial intelligence. We can get into a symbiotic consciousness relationship. This is where we are going far ahead of the technology. And while, the tools that are present today, there are apps that converse with you. They teach Advaita teachings and psychotherapy techniques and cognitive behavior therapy and dialectic therapy, all kinds of things that help you to observe your own mind and release the identification that I am the Karta, the ego identification. So, as a matter of fact, you can use some of these AI tools for you to meditate, for you to transcend your own ego. There is a platform called Vedānta AI. It has already got a large amount of Advaitic stuff on it, and it is attempting to do it in a precise style of authentic Vedanta teachers. Before you just say, ha, stupid, this is another one. How dare we touch this pure Advaitic guru style? It will never be able to be a guru. It is not trying to be a guru. It is just providing clarity and guidance through that is rooted in the spiritual wisdom, can be made available easier in a language, in the set of examples that I can understand. Maybe there is a way in which the AI can be the mirror that we talked about, Viswam Darpanam. The world itself can be a mirror. Why not the AI that is part of the world that can be a mirror for me, so that from the lower level of consciousness, lower level of intelligence that I operate from, I may be able to move towards from Vyavaharika consciousness, I can go towards Paramarthika stages and I can think about some of it. So, ending my talk pretty much, the concept of identity in the future is going to be very interesting to look at, because our decisions, our actions, our memories, our creativity, everything is deeply integrated with the technology. specifically with the AI assistants, AI technology, AI algorithms. So, to a certain extent, where do I end? Where does the technology begin? The Matrix movie that they showed about 25 years ago, being in the Matrix, and that movie itself being influenced by Vedanta, now maybe with awareness, there could be an opportunity for us to realize the fluid, non-local nature of the Atman, of the selfhood. Hopefully, we can outsource our intellect, whether we like it or not. Cognitive capacity of AI, as we said earlier, is far superior to any one of us. Maybe by outsourcing that intellect, we can dive more into the spirit. So we can design AI to liberate us, but not necessarily addict and confine us as it is currently doing. But for that, we need to put our mind, and we, as the Advaitic philosophers, we need to pay more attention to evolution of technology, evolution of AI, instead of separating and competing and asking the question of computers can never evolve, can never be human being, or can never be conscious. That's fine. But can we symbiotically think about how the world is evolving, how the universe is evolving? Maybe we can play a collaborative, co-creative role to reflect the unity and the compassion and the shared progress that we want to do, so that we can come up with the symbiotic design. So think about it, in the ocean of consciousness, the two waves, the human wave and the technology wave, cooperating in the same consciousness. So let me leave you with some future directions that you might want to think about. Like, what if the advent of AI is helping us to awaken to a deepened sense of oneness? As I mentioned a minute ago, let us do a cognitive offload and insight and intuition onload. So maybe the AI design is truly helping us to be Advaitins. Maybe we are going from dualistic to Advaitic paradigm, machines with human, and maybe this is what is going to help human beings to evolve our consciousness to next level of where we want to go. And maybe the wisdom of Advaita, compassion, and self knowledge could become very meaningful as this symbiosis between technology and human grow. Maybe the Advaitic wisdom can guide us a lot more. So let me end by saying, what if the AI mirror to humanity prompts, they prompt us to examine our own consciousness? So let me stop saying, before we worry about AI becoming sentient, enlightened, am I sentient to really think about my next steps, my awakening, and about, am I fully awake? Are you? Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take. So that's where I leave.
Thank you, Kaipaji. Thank you. You have given us enormous amount of homework and enormous amount of requirement for Mananam. After having done the Shravanam, Mananam is going to be more taxing than Shravanam. Of course, I like that terminology, cognitive offload to insight onload. This is a fantastic terminology. It's towards the diversity to unity or oneness, Dvaita to Advaita. It was really very good. It was very good. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kaipaji. Viewers, we have another session tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock India time. Please join for tomorrow morning session.
There are about 3-4 questions which are online. Maybe there are. Should I just answer them just quickly? so that we can end before that. So it says something like AI, and there is an anonymous question, says AI in context to HI is much faster, so it will hit the wall much faster compared to human interface. So perhaps it will not define that as that of self or Brahman, but will realize that so like humans, it will fall back to the domain of Maya as we see with humans. Tantra, AI, perhaps, okay, it might end up as a perfect tantric. All that is possible. But the question is, human beings are helping you create, evolve, and integrate, AI. So we are the tantrics for sure. This is tantra, and we are developing yantras. Okay. So to a certain extent, what we want to do is in our hands to a certain extent. If we are conscious, if we are compassionate, and if we are wise, why not we bring that in the designs that we do? If we can do that, chances are there is a potential for the connected technology and human interface might allow us to be better Advaitis than we are. Second question is, if once AI realizes what it can do by harnessing all the data, it might surpass human command. Yes, it is possible that already people are talking about the AI to have its rights and to have its own various kinds of things that are coming up. But, it is like the same thing in organizations. People didn't want unions. Many technology companies discourage unions because they feel like unions and management will kind of have a fight. But it's all about command and control. Is it possible for us to think that when we work symbiotically, the human command versus technology command will not become as much important? And finally, new direction to self-realization with AI. Let's hope for some science and spirit. Thank you. Yeah, you are right. That is probably what you can do. And my email address is prasad.kaipa@gmail.com. And the slides, problem is whom to give and where to give. Chances are, if you write to me, I may be able to share the slides. That will be fine. And the last comment is AI being enlightened. You know what? I don't know whether, if we are not enlightened, whether we can design an AI that is enlightened. But chances, if we can figure out a way, we and the technology can work together, then between two of us, we might actually do something much more meaningful. But of course, we need to also watch out our selfish needs, our warmongering capabilities, and our own selfish gains might also drive AI to go towards the same selfish path that the humans have gone. So it is completely in our hands to see where we want to go, what we want to do, before we can make and worry about AI becoming so important and so, what you might call we need to be afraid of AI control. Let us figure out a way how synergistically we can do something. That is what I believe and I hope would be leading to a better future for both us and for the AI. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you. It is something like Uddharedatmanatmanam Natmanamo Sadhayat Atmaiva Atmano Bandhu Atmaiva Vipuratma. That brings us to the close of the session. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.